Here we go. We are recording. Wonderful. So welcome once again. I'm really happy to be here with you guys. I'm really happy you are here. Thank you for jumping in to today's Dharma Talk. I want to talk about 100 things today. So it's been a little bit difficult to narrow it down. So I decided to make it easy, and I will talk about enlightenment. Picked an easier topic. And even more specific, I'll start by talking about the mechanisms of enlightenment, because I feel that that is, I know that that's a very interesting subject. It has been a subject for me and is for Nina, and it's something we talk about, not in the form of we're getting enlightened yet, but rather in the form of what holds us back from becoming whole. Because way before we come into the neighborhood of enlightenment, it's important for every single individual to come to a space that we're healed and whole. And when we're healed and whole, and only then do we have the capacity to start talking about how to reach the next stages of enlightenment. But before we do that, welcome one and all. Welcome family, welcome beloved ones. I'd like to start with a short meditation so we can all arrive at the same place. I feel you all settling, getting seated. I am doing the same. So I invite you to find that comfortable seat. And as you find your comfortable seat, scoop your tailbone, press down through both sits bones. Invite your navel in towards your spine. Float your rib cage up and away from your pelvic floor. Invite your chin back towards your chest. Lengthen up through the crown of your head. And here an important detail. Invite the tip of your tongue to your upper palate. Live in that place. The tip of the tongue to the upper palate. And also, if you can, invite a smile at the edges of your lips and the edges of your eyes. And inhale and invite your hands to your heart. So here already, we're going to go through this one more time. Scoop your tailbone, point to the center of the planet with your sacrum. Invite your navel in, lift your rib cage up and away from the pelvic floor. Tuck your chin, lengthen through the crown of your head. Tip of the tongue to the upper palate, gentle smile at the edges of your lips and the edges of your eyes. And having aligned the vessel, flare out your nostrils and inhale, bring in the divine. So as you inhale, feel you're bringing in this stream of consciousness, a stream of prana, chi, down the center core of your body, and feel you're inhaling. You're filling your pelvic bowl with this beautiful life force, prana, like is light blue, like the color of the sky. Exhale and feel as if you're exhaling up through the center core, and as you tuck your chin, it's shooting that exhalation right up through the crown of the head, like a whale exploding, exhaling up through the sky, allowing that big water fountain air to rise up. And then inhale again. So as we inhale, focus, notice the inhalation coming down the center core of your body, filling your pelvic bowl. Your pelvic bowl is Muladhara, the first chakra, the place we're most human. Filling up that energy, and as you exhale, tucking your chin, exhaling up through the crown, you're exhaling through Sahasrara, the seventh chakra, the place you are most divine. And keep on noticing as you gently press your thumbs to your heart. Be the witness from this place, noticing the inhalation, inviting divine energy to your first chakra, giving life force to your physical body. Exhaling, allowing your soul energy to move up through your seventh chakra. And noticing life itself in consciousness, awakening the body and awakening the spirit. And with your next inhale, feel you're expanding your heart. Feel that inhalation. As you're expanding your lungs, feel you're expanding your heart, bringing both your Muladhara and your Sahasrara into Anahata to expand the horizon chakra. So you can bring everything of you that is human and everything of you that is divine into this space. And to actually bring your consciousness to feel, to hear tonight's talk from this space, and to more and more feel you're comfortable living in this space. Take one more deep breath, feeling and allowing yourself to ground in the moment. Know that we're safe. We're in a space of loving people. And as you exhale, bow your chin to your heart and thank yourself. Remember that you are the guru. You are the teacher. You receive teachings from many people around you, from teachers who call themselves teachers to people that you might cross paths in the road or in an office that don't even call themselves teachers. And there's something every time and everywhere for us to learn. And you become the guru. And if you wish to, only if you wish to, you can bow deeper to any god or goddess, saint or avatar. Bow to God, Pan, God, the ancient Greek god of nature. And gently inhale and rise and open your eyes. Welcome, welcome once again. It's so good to see you. Friends from the past, new friends, family, that is so cool. I'm so happy. Cattails, we have all sorts of spectators today. So welcome. I want to start from, I'll start from a personal story. I talked about, I said that I'll talk about enlightenment, and then I think I'll start by touching the idea of defining it and then talking a little bit about what that means. I feel that I'll start with that enlightenment itself is an idea. It's an idea. We talk about some people that are enlightened, and I've met through my travels, I want to say several people. I want to say 5 or 6 people that I was clear to me that they were in the category of what we all call enlightened. And I had the opportunity to spend time with these people. Some of them were in the United States, some of them were in Greece, some of them were in Peru. And while I spent time with these people, one of the things that became quickly apparent was that they all each had their personality. I thought that becoming enlightened means that you become sort of in a certain way divine or godly, or not unattainable, but definitely at a higher level of just being, and that these beings, these men and women of enlightenment, just cast this beautiful shadow around them, or light around them, of energy that is healing, that is serene, that is expansive. And they do. That is true. When I sit close to my teachers, I love just being in that space, in that 6-foot perimeter. But one of the things that I realized very quickly, to my surprise at the time, was that they all had their personalities. And I had this wonderful, amazing man, Adia Shanti, definitely worthwhile YouTubing or checking out. He's an American. He's a Zazen meditator. He is an enlightened being, an enlightened man, an enlightened teacher. And I had the opportunity to assist him for a week-long training in Akupalu, and I want to say it was around 2007, 2008. So I spent a lot of time with him. And I think he was, from all the people that I met, that again, I put in that category of enlightened, he was absolutely he was one of the sweetest ones. And then I'm going to go all the way for that contrast, all the way down into the jungle of Peru. My beloved teacher, who I've spent years with, not a week, but years with, 2-3 weeks, a month at a time, depending on my visit down to Peru, from 2006 all the way to 2018. I spent a lot of time with Maestro Panduro. And from all the enlightened people that I met, Maestro Panduro was, I want to find the correct word, he was a total hard ass. He was like totally hard. I can find no better description. The guy was just hard on everyone that he met. And behind that was just an immense amount of love. Immense amount of love. I felt that Panduro had healed so many people, it had helped awaken so many people, that it was really clear, especially in around that decade of being with him and helping him, being ceremony with him. And when he would do ayahuasca ceremonies, I would be his assistant and spending days with him, and sometimes at his house when people would come. He healed so many people, and that's what we'll talk about, healing, because that's what enlightenment is. That he just had this full plate, that he had this like list, a hard drive couldn't fit in of how many people he had healed. So every time someone would walk in, and later on quickly I started seeing me walk in. I would be sitting there with him, and there was Ray once again, just like I showed up in the jungle and said, "Hi, help me, I'm lost, I'm dying, I'm not well, I don't know what to do." I saw dozens of people come in. So I realized that, he was like, as many people I can heal and enlighten, this world is like endless. It's like he hadn't even put a dent into this whole mass of humanity. And of course he did have a hard life in the beginning of his life as a young person, in his childhood, that is, in the jungle, moving into Puerto Maldonado. Puerto Maldonado is a town in the jungle of Peru, close to the borders of Bolivia. And life is very hard in Puerto Maldonado, and even harder in the jungle itself. So he got toughened up. But all that just to say that, and when we talk about enlightenment, just get a little bit of an idea, and we'll talk about something, even healing itself. But enlightenment is a state of consciousness that you can reach as a result of years of meditation and practices that lead to that. And we'll talk about these practices. But it's also a state that you can reach during a ayahuasca ceremony or a meditation ceremony, or by sitting in a temple, or by sitting in front of the sunset or the sunrise. But it's a state that arises, and you're in it for half an hour, 4 hours. And then as a human being, you want to eat something, and then you want to walk somewhere. Then you come back to this other state that we know, right? And that's why the shamans also separate the state of consciousness into two. It's first attention and second attention. And first attention is where we are all at. First attention is this: I'm making sure that Zoom is recording, everyone is here listening, I'm making sure my shirt is straight. It's this world that we're living in right now. Second attention is what's happening in the meantime, and we're not tuning into it or focusing in it, which is this other realm that coexists in this one, the spirit world. And I feel Kabir really sums it up nice in one of his poems, that he says, there's more traffic here than meets the eye. It's like I'm sitting here, but hey, I have God Pan next to me, I have my Jaguar next to me, I have Hog, I have Nina, actual Nina next to me, and Nina's tiger spirit, etc., etc. So there are these parallel realms, and enlightenment is the moment that you're able, or even one could say this is what the word shaman means, that the person that is able to tune into both of these realms. You're able to kind of like tune in and feel and see this other realm, know this other realm, be with it. It's like know who else is in the room. So again, as long as we're in a body, we're in first attention. We better be, you have to be. You can't be driving and be in second attention. Or else you'll stay in, you might stay in the spirit world if you're driving. You might be there and just stay there. The idea is if we're in the I want to call it mundane world, as in the mundo, the world itself. We have to be in the real physical world. There's no practicality in being in the other world in everyday use. And that's something that I feel like is interesting, or if at least anything to give you guys a map, and it's just food for thought. And like the rest of the Dharma talks is food for thought. It's just like ideas to play around with. And I think then also some ideas are good to have in mind, because if we don't have them in mind at all, then they're inconceivable, untouchable, they just don't exist, right? So I say this because I feel that we're all enlightened beings, because we're all spirits and we all live in our body. And in many ways, second attention is awakening your consciousness of being a spirit, your conscious knowing and being that more than your thinking mind. So to feel the rest of the spirits in the room, the saints, the gods, the goddesses, the avatars, the power animals. And here's where all the training comes in, because for me, I feel it's like all of yoga, all of Taoism, and all of shamanism are paths of healing, paths of evolving, and evolution to its highest degree is evolving to becoming, to enlightenment. And that enlightenment, for as many people I have met, and I think many of you know, I've traveled the world many times around to meet, to find, to seek shamans, to find enlightened people and teachers from many different lineages. I realized what I'm sharing is that, again, enlightenment is a state you choose to be in for half an hour, or 4 hours at some point, and maybe some teachers stay in a cave for a week. I'm sure they're not in this state all week either. It is good for us to know that as a place of where we stand and how we have these categories in our mind, or it's become very useful for me to really have an understanding. I feel a lot of people, especially in the 70s and the 80s, and I guess even now, search to seek gurus that are enlightened. And I think enlightenment, again, is a state that even gurus, teachers, healers, yogis, or shamans only visit. But why is it important to us or to you guys? I think it's important for you to know this map and this realm, just so you start recognizing things when they happen. It's very similar to my first ayahuasca journeys in 2006, where all of a sudden I found myself, I had drunk this awful mix, this awful thing. And I found myself in the spirit world. And the first 2 nights, I was lost. I didn't know where I was. I didn't have a map. I didn't understand what was happening because of the difference in the sensation that in the space-time. The spirit world is really different because we're not there with our body. But while we're here with our body, it's nice to know the maps, because we can draw from our ego and our first attention, but we can also, if we have an idea of the map, can actually begin to draw from our enlightened self. Enlightened teachers are not the lucky ones, nor the ones that brushed down for 60 years and then they became enlightened only. Yes, they are those people who put practices in, hours and years of practice, reach that state. So I'm just going to give a little bit of a map of what that brings. And maybe, just maybe, and I find this to be my truth, I don't care to be enlightened, but I do want to be awake. I want to know that my body is functioning to its highest health and vitality and clarity. And my mind is as sharp and conscious and aware in every moment and in every interaction. So vitality of the body is a prerequisite. You can't have a body that's not filled with vitality, meridians that are fully open and running the energy freely, a nervous system that is soft and calm, an endocrine system that is balanced. Without any of these 3, there is no enlightenment. So maybe we need to learn a little bit about all the practices that can lead to enlightenment, to just add them in our everyday life, so we're more enlightened than we were yesterday or we're more aware and awakened in every moment. And I feel truly, because many of you know me, I see many people that have been in my trainings, many people that we've been through trainings and through different countries together. You know, I love life. I engage. I love surfing. I love dirt biking. I love, when I lived up north, I love snowboarding. I feel that, you know, being in life is a big gift, and to engage with these ways. I love sailing. To engage with life in these physical ways is one of the biggest gifts. It's like we're given our body to really feel life. And also, I feel, you know, if you bring in Mother Teresa and Gandhi, these beautiful, I will include them in the enlightened beings, we're here to be physically here to help others also. So I'll feel that, open your heart to it, and open your heart to see if there's anything you would like to take, and if you feel that there's something from what I'm sharing that you would like to use. The most important thing, again, for me is like, how maybe by having this information, can you be accessing your more enlightened self, or in moments that you find yourself in difficulty, challenged because there's someone in front of you challenging you, someone is maybe speaking in a higher tone and voice and intensity, or there's an event in life that is difficult. Those moments, we really kind of begin to shut down. Does everyone know what I'm talking about? Maybe having someone talking to you really loud, or even I'll just say yelling at you. Let me see your hands. You feel that you shut down your whole nervous system? Okay, that is another point of reference to talk. Thank you. Thank God it's not only me. I'm glad you all guys are on board. But that, I want to bring it, is the other side of not enlightenment. So we talked a little bit about that state of knowing and feeling either through the spirit world and keeping a center of calmness and expansion and open heart. And then the opposite is when we close down. And essentially what we close down, what happens is we can't be love. We can't be love at that moment. And that maybe is one of the most important things I left out. Enlightenment is love. Enlightenment means I am one with all. Enlightenment means I love everything. And even more specifically, from my experience of being moments in these states with my teachers, it is really actually coming to a big aha and understanding that everything around us is made from love. When we're talking about molecules and submolecules, we're talking about love. The stars, the galaxy, the rotating whole galaxies are held together by love and our love. And that is a concept that is talked about from Christ to Buddha to all the enlightened ones, the idea of love. Love is an emotion that human beings have, feel, and really like to enjoy. All mammals, actually, but also love the heart of it. And the reason we all love it so much is because the heart of it is that it's life itself. God, the God molecule that exists within every cell and in every atom, is love. And it starts from the atom, and you can see an atom with a proton in the middle as love shining out. The electron is love spinning. And you can take that from the microcosmos and take it to the macrocosmos, and you'll see the sun in the middle and all these protons and electrons, all these planets spinning around. The same physics applies. What's holding them together is love, and what is build the planets themselves or our body is love. And hence, when we are feeling it and we're chasing after it sometimes, or some of us at some points in our life, or when we're feeling it, when a cat is purring on us and is like kneading your leg, or your dog is there and wagging the tail and they're like pushing into you, that sensation that you feel viscerally in your body. And the reason, again, we love it is because it's all of life. So when someone's yelling at me, my first reaction was to be shutting down and closing down, and essentially then coming to a space that I cannot be love. And my usual way of thinking at that moment was that I can't be love because you are wrong. You are doing something that's not correct. But notice that immediately is not love because it's judgment by itself. And then you can counter and say, well, wait a minute, there are people that do incorrect things and are out of alignment. And I'll agree. I agree. There are things that happen in the planet, or things we hear about, or things that have happened to us that are coming from a place of no alignment, of non-alignment, or a place of that lacks love, or sometimes even logic, right? Humanity. But Maestro Panduro, who was really hard on me, a lot of love, and really, I feel that I've gained a lot from him, besides my entire life, besides the fact that he's one of the main people that saved my life. He asked me when I was dying from cancer. So when I was talking about people that I had difficulties with and I held trauma from those experiences from these people, he asked me, do you want to be loved or do you want to keep your cancer? Now, put that way, it was really clear to me that, because that's why I was there. That's why I walked through Mexico. I went through Peru. I was in the mountains. I was in the jungle. I was not wanting to keep the cancer that I had. And as long as I felt that and did not go into this place of love, as long as I kept the trauma and held the story that so-and-so traumatized me, so-and-so hurt me, because they said this words, and I asked 10 friends and all 10 agreed with me. As long as I held that story, I was not letting it go. I was holding the space, and I was holding a nervous system and an endocrine system that could not hold love, that could not be love. Love is light. Love is absolute openness of heart, is absolute. Love is the most powerful place and the most vulnerable place you could be at the same time. But if you're not amidst absolute vulnerability, you're probably not there. If there's not a little bit of a taste that's like, oh my God, I am totally without any defense right now. If you're not in that place of vulnerability, you're probably not in the deepest part of love that you can be. There's more. If you swim deeper, go deeper, you'll find that space. So the question for me was that, do you want to have cancer or do you want to be love? And that was the training for me, and it still is a training. And the idea what Panduro said is, it's like, so when someone's talking to you, so when you go back home and you see this person, you have to resolve this. We cut the cords. You have to resolve this so you're not holding it. You have to find a way to resolve it so you're not holding it inside you. You need to take this away. So in that place, you fill in that place now with love again, and more love and more love. So you can actually be love. So your cells are vibrating love, and they're not vibrating anything else. So he essentially went on to say, and this is, I feel, one of the biggest gifts that I received. And I know I say this many times, that there's all these huge gifts that I received, and they're all like so big. Or this one is like, he said, it's your choice. And I share this from Maestro Panduro directly to you, from the jungle to your living room. And from the spirit world, Panduro made his last ayahuasca crossing to the other side in 2019. And he said this to me. He said, it's your choice. So when someone's in front of you and they're saying or doing something that is out of alignment, it is either your choice to either stay open as love or close down in dysfunction. It is your choice to either stay open as love or close down in dysfunction. And that there is a shift of camera. It's the camera turns, and it's from where I have my camera and I'm looking at this person. And I'm going to say this again because I want to make it clear. If I share some of these stories, all of you will agree that this person I'm giving a story or an example about was out of alignment, was even a bad person, whatever. We'll agree that these people do things or say things that are hurtful to others. And maybe you've experienced that or you're still experiencing it. But that is the moment of challenge, and that is the moment where it really counts. Can I, in front of this, while it's happening, stay open as love? And I invite you to try to do this as an experiment and as an exploration to see what happens to the other person at that moment. And I will say, for me, it's nothing less than a miracle to watch someone be like really coming at you, da 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 da, and I'll leave it at that. I won't put words to it or more energy behind it. But sometimes people do, or sometimes people have this passive aggressive way of sliding in things that really like trigger us. And feel the trigger. You're going to feel the trigger, and see if you can respond by taking a deep inhalation and parting your arms and stepping in with your chest a little bit closer to them, just an inch, if not a little bit more. But rather than contracting and closing to protect yourself, open. And of course, I'm not giving you advice if someone's attacking you with a knife, or, right? I'm talking about something that you know is safe, or it's hurtful, but it's not physically dangerous. And I heard this over and over again, and one of the things that I started noticing is that my closing down and my dysfunction was happening throughout the day several times, and there was weeks and there was days in the week that it was happening more. So I had a pattern in my nervous system. There was moments that would be more triggered, easier triggered, and moments that would shut down more. And those moments, again, I would keep the camera on the other person and say, well, there you go again. You did it again. You hurt me again. Now I'm crying or I'm feeling bad because you did this and this and this. And the idea is, again, can I turn that camera? Can I turn the lens on me? So while this is happening, and again, I invite you, and this is part of stepping into enlightenment and stepping into awakening, is like, keep the camera on you. Keep the camera on you, because you are the other person. And you're the other person that you have some control over. The other person you don't have any control over. On you have some control over. You don't have total control on yourself, but you have some. And that some is like, say, oh, wow, we talked about this. It's like, now this is happening. I'm feeling triggered. I'm feeling angry, or I'm feeling sad, or I'm feeling hurt, or anxiety, or fear. And it's a great opportunity. I'm going to practice it and just kind of subtly just do this. And open your rib cage and move into that energy more. And then breathe deep into your body. Make sure you breathe deep into your body. So deep, feel that inhalation. It's Dirga Pranayama, deep into the body. And then just notice after 2 or 3 breaths where the other person is at. So I was kind of getting it, but I was still in the jungle, so I didn't have a lot of opportunity to practice it, because I was there with either some tourists that were coming in for healing, or I was with the people of the tribe. Mostly I was with Maestro Panduro. So I'm going to share this, just came to me right now, this memory, because this was the real, like, what turned the button for me. I was in an ayahuasca journey, and again, here a disclaimer: I don't think ayahuasca is the end all, heal all, and I don't think that everyone has to do an ayahuasca ceremony. It was important to me. I call it my chemotherapy. It helped me clear out my internal organs, and it did help me, by all means, come in touch with my deeper self and take off my ego clothes, many layers, painfully, but definitely. And one of the most painful and difficult experiences I've had in ayahuasca, I think the unique, most difficult journey was, all of a sudden, and I don't remember the question, and I don't remember how I found myself there, but I found myself in the purgatory. So there's this moment that I found myself in what is possible as human suffering. And I found myself in human suffering, in the depth of it, like waist deep in it, literally waist deep in it, in this place where I was waist deep in this space that I could not get out of. And a lot of people were there, and they were actually there. I was only visiting. That was one of the most, I don't know if I want to call it horrific, I want to call it shocking, I want to call it difficult. It took me 3 days to come out of that, like, whoa. But there's that. I returned back home, and there I was, and I was giving a lecture on yoga and shamanism, Akripalu, as you all know, and many of you I've met there. And this is 2007. And I had noticed I was like beginning to talk about this stuff. And I was actually like really feeling that I was like new and talking in front of big audiences. And sometimes it would be intimidating. And sometimes someone would ask a difficult question and I had to dig in and kind of like get that answer right. Or sometimes there would be someone that would be like right out. It's like, oh, come on, really? They would like do something to like really pull the rug under me and just be right out. What's the word? Impolite. Totally impolite. It's just like, if you don't like the lecture, there's another lecture down the hallway. Just, you know, you don't have to listen to it. But in any case, every now and then, if you guys teach or if you've been there, there's every now and then, there's that great being that will do that and will say, hey, what do you got for me now? And I had just come back. It was like 3 days after coming back from Peru, probably a week after this journey, a week or maybe 2 weeks. And this person said, da 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 from the back, something that just sounded like that. And I was so surprised. My heart exploded in love. There was no other person in the room that I loved this man. I did not even see it coming. This person who did not believe, this person who wanted to say, you're a fake, this person that wanted to say all of this stuff is crap. All of a sudden, I just was flooded with love for this person because he in the room was the one that was demanding more than anyone to learn about it. It wasn't about me anymore. It wasn't about what I was teaching. He was really suffering and he really was fed up with hearing teachings and healings that really didn't teach his heart, didn't heal his heart, didn't bring him out of his purgatory. And so I'm grateful to him. I'm grateful for anyone that says anything. I'm grateful for everyone that asks questions, etc. But that was a huge turn for me because, again, I did not see it coming. I felt my solar plexus go like this, and the next moment, this thing happened. This exploded. I felt it through my veins, running through my arms, through my legs, my eyes. I'm sure I got all red, all for the love that I felt for this man. And I do not remember, and I'm sorry I don't remember, but it really doesn't matter because just like too much was happening. It was bigger than, I don't remember his answer or how he doubted it and did that, but I just gave him this answer that just answered his question, that answered his question of his heart, right? And of course, he was there when everyone left after. He was there to get a big hug. He wanted a hug from me, and I really wanted and appreciated the hug from him. So, again, it's a state, this being in love and being love. And we can hold it and we can cultivate it. And there's most of the time I'm finding myself finding it more interesting to see if I could do that. That is more interesting than answering the right smart question or putting the other person in their place or telling them how they're wrong. It's like, okay, that's the whole world doing it to the whole world. The whole world is correcting the whole world. You know, it's just like this country is telling that country what to do, and this culture is telling that other culture what to do, and this is the right way, and that's the wrong way, and this, our God is the best God, and your gods are fake gods. And it's just like, that's what's happening. That's a state, that's the state of being, definitely in first attention, and definitely in a place of short-sightedness, and no blindness, actually, blindness and asleepness. The moment I can include and have and be love in front of other people that trigger me, that's the moment that I've done my personal work. And the idea and the most important thing that I've come to understand, teaching and sharing and watching Panduro sometimes be like, okay, here we go from zero again. Here we go. People would come in, they would leave enlightened or healed. Some people would die. Not everyone lived. They came into the jungle. But though, I mean, then again, from the beginning, because that's the story of humanity. We're here to learn. And I was like, Maestro, Panduro, why isn't this world like all these centuries? Christ was here 2,000 years ago. Yogis were telling us 5,000 years ago. And it's like, he said, of course it's not all enlightened. If it wasn't enlightened, it would not be a gymnasium, he called it. It wouldn't be a place that we've come to practice. We're here to practice overcoming difficulties. And in essence, we're here to practice to remain open as love and not close down in our dysfunction. And for me, my enlightenment, or even my healing, or even the reason I even had cancer, was other people. I was focusing on other people. I was blaming other people. And this is important to understand, that if I asked 5 friends, and I did back then, they all agreed with me. So-and-so shouldn't have done that. That shouldn't have happened, etc. But that's the paradigm that I was in. So were my friends that I asked. The idea is that we want to change paradigm, because if I ask anyone to give me a example of common sense, they'll immediately give it to me. But common sense is equal to collective consciousness, state of mind. And if I look at collective consciousness, if we all look at collective consciousness, and if we all look at common sense, let's look what it's done and where we're at. This is the sum of collective consciousness, the state that humanity is right now. And it's not the state of love, it's a state of closing down, literally, and dysfunction, literally. It's just expressing what it is in a bigger scale, so it's easier to see. And now, if anything, I feel we're all like, I don't want to say challenged, we're all invited to be love. And any one of us, if you have connections with me or other teachers, or if you're teachers to other students, I think this is the biggest opportunity for all of us to open our hearts even wider, because now the world needs it more than ever. And now people that don't have any kind of connection, because it just didn't happen in their life, to have any kind of, like, even a little string connected to spirituality or some kind of spiritual, and it can be anything. I love all spiritualism. It could be Taoism, it could be Sufis, it could be Hindu, it could be anything. We all talk about the same thing. We all, when you move into these other realms, you see the same thing. You see that everything is love. And the moment we step out of love, we're living in dis-ease and dysfunction. And along come slowly, several parts of this dis-ease manifesting in an accident, or in a cancer, or a simple cold that we get over, or whatever it is. So I want to turn it a little bit and talk about the mechanisms and talk about the physiology of it, because that's one thing that really threw me off. I thought that if I think a lot, and if someone tells me the teachings, and if I read these scriptures, then my mind would be enlightened. Okay, so the mind, the thinking mind, our mind, my mind, I'll speak in an I statement, is dysfunctional. Surprise! It's dysfunctional. It's built on copy-pasted sentences and belief systems that are dysfunctional. Yes, if you want to say yes, no, wait, they're the great poets, they're the great artists, they're the great musicians, they're the great sculptors. Yes, there are ways to get words to describe enlightenment. There are ways to think and speak that are much closer to God and love than others are. So that's one part that we want to take. But if we take it for granted and start from there, that the mind is dysfunctional, it's a good place to start, because then we can really take every thought we have and put it through the shiv and decide if we want to keep it or not, rather than just keep a whole big chunk of it that might hold dysfunctions and won't let us evolve. And that's why I say it, because if I can start like noticing my thoughts and really turn the camera on, and again, I've shared this with you, with all of you who practice yoga with me, the first sentence in Patanjali's Yoga Sutra says, now begins the practice of yoga. Wait, let me actually translate it. Now turn the lens on you. Now turn the lens on you. Don't tell me what this person is doing in front of you. Tell me how you are feeling, what you're allowing your mind to think, what hormones you're secreting through your veins, what is happening to your nervous system, what meridian is shutting down, and what organ now is suffering and giving birth more to that emotion. Anger is not in my mind, nor in the set of values that was given to me from my parents, from my school, from my community. Maybe my set of values that's been given to me from my parents, my school, my community has been insulted, but the anger itself, the emotion, only arises in the body by the bile that the liver is secreting. Now the bile that is secreted in the liver is flowing through the blood flow. Now this blood that is arriving in my head is telling my brain and my thoughts, you're absolutely right, and actually you should be angrier. And then you embellish the thought because you got this physiology feeding into it. I mean, does anyone agree with me that anger comes and then you can start spiraling out and out and out, and then you're really, anyone have felt that? Let me see hands so I know it's not only me. Or okay, right, because all emotions spiral out because it's thought telling my pituitary gland what to do, pituitary gland giving orders to my endocrine system, my endocrine system telling my internal organs, my organs secreting, filling the blood flow with that belief that this is what's happening. This is your reality right now. This is the only reality. You're in danger. And the only way you can really evade this danger is by yelling at this person, suing them, and then calling everyone you know, telling them how bad they are. And the unfortunate thing is because we're mammals that are really low in the food chain, like we're really low in the food chain. There's ants that can kill us. We're like very low in the food chain. Take out these guns things that we made that happened in the last 120 years or 200 years. And we really put ourselves, you know, in right order. We know that we're not going to survive. I won't go outside my house, especially living here in the jungle. I can't sleep outside. I don't know what will happen. It could be an ant, it could be a spider, it could be a fly, it could be a mosquito, or it could be a jaguar, and so forth and so on. The list is big, but all this to say that because we're there, and that's something we can't forget, even if we're not thinking about it. We're not thinking about it because we invented guns, and even more so, we realize that if we gather together in groups and numbers and have a city and kill everything out, we're kind of safe. So once we're in that safe wall of a city, we can relax about it. But our body and our nervous system for millennia is wired to know that we may perish very easily. So that system is on. So when I love the example, when a simple example would be like your spouse, your husband, your wife comes in and says, "You didn't do the dishes yesterday." I don't know, a silly example that never happened. Right, love? We do the dishes. but anything, thank you, Jeff. But anything can really quickly turn on that mechanism that says, oh, I might be kicked out of the tribe right now. And if I'm going to be kicked out of the tribe, I'm alone in the jungle, I might die. And my response to, you didn't do the dishes yesterday is, you never do the dishes. So my lens is only on the other person. There's nothing turning back to me to even look if I did the dishes or not, which could be a possibility that I didn't do the dishes. Like we don't even look. At that moment, all triggers are on. We're full on yelling to save our life. So this is the mechanism that is really important to be aware of, because it's a mechanism in our physiology, and you can be aware of it and you can notice it. And especially if you find this amusing and if you find this interesting, what I'm sharing today, I think for you too, it can be more interesting to watch how you can stay open as love rather than to correct the other person. And again, stay open as love and watch what happens. That I leave to you. I'm not going to say what happens, but I'm going to leave it to you as an experiment. I constantly find this to be the more interesting aspect, because I spent many years of my life, all the way through my 40s, being right, or when I was insulted, being angry, or sad, or crying, or yelling, or whatever. So first of all, I'm going to say that each one of us over here, and if I could spend a little moment and look closer into the screen and see you a little clearer, I would most likely see, we all have an inclination. We each have our individual inclination. Some of us, when we're triggered, we're inclined to get angry. Some of us are inclined to feel hurt and cry. Some of us to feel anxiety and kind of like insecurity. Some of us are more inclined and have a predisposition to feel fearful and terrified by something. So there's a few emotions, and there are only a handful of emotions that we can actually feel as mammals. And to be specific, there are 10. And guess what else is 10? 10 vital internal organs. And each one of these vital internal organs holds an emotion. My kidneys, I gave up my right kidney, right, in 2005. And because that dis-ease was mostly there. I lived in fear. I lived in fear of my next payment. I lived in fear of how I'm going to make it economically. I lived in the fears that I personally was living in. But I chose fear because it was already a predisposition of my body, and for someone else it's liver and someone else's lungs, right? It could be sorrow, sadness. It can be anxiety because the spleen meridian is closed, and the spleen is more the inclination and your predisposition. So maybe feel it out. What is your predisposition other than anger, which is a general umbrella, liver, that we all go into? And that's a general umbrella because this is the Western world. We have the right, it's righteousness. Right behind righteousness is anger. And it's really, I'm going to call it out, it's really a white thing. It's Europe and that's at least where I find it. And I don't want to be racist in any way. I just, that's my opinion or what I feel is happening. In any case, leaving races behind, I felt anger in my life, and I felt sadness, and I felt fear. Besides whatever it is that's happening and what meridian is shutting down, and you'll know, if I go home and you're crying, most likely it can be kidneys or it can be spleen, but find what it is, because your way to enlightenment is find the foods and the practices that can support that internal organ, so you can support your personality and you can support your ability to come back and say, hey, I can still wait, I did this kidney cleanse, and now so-and-so said this, and wait, I can hold it, I'm still open as love for at least 30 more seconds. Like, wow, I did it. Next time it's gonna be 45 seconds. But where the shutdown happens, regardless of where your trigger lives, and it can be in any one of these internal organs or the meridian of the organ, where the actual shift happens is where electricity goes. So as mammals, again, when we were scared, when a lion was chasing us, when a tiger was coming at us, when we were hiding in the small cave because we could hear this dinosaur thing right outside looking for us, and we could hear that breath and knew that we were going to die if they would find it, like real mammal, actual mammal life, our adrenals would turn on, our amygdala would turn on, and our adrenals would turn on. And at that moment, our adrenals would start pumping adrenaline and insulin, adrenaline, essentially adrenaline. And when this adrenaline would go into our body, we'd become all powerful to fight, flight, or freeze, like totally just shut our breath down and not be heard. And when the amygdala is turned on, we are at that place of no love. We're at that place where it is impossible to love. We're at that place where our immune system is shut down, and all inflammations become more inflamed. All our, like 90% of our bodily functions shut down because the body is sourcing from everything else in order to be able to give you the strength to fight and kill that lion with your bare hands, or outrun a lion. Both are quite difficult, but we're almost there with that adrenaline. So if I'm in that state, what happens is all the electricity has gone to the back room. I call it the dark room, and that room that I can't function from at all. I'm totally shut down. I am totally dysfunctional. Person will say, you didn't take out the garbage, you didn't do the dishes, and I will be all at them with things that I later regretted saying. Have you ever had that experience? It's like, oh my, I really didn't mean that. I didn't want to say that. Because why? I was mad, right? And there's a reason the word mad, means angry, and means crazy, right? Because I'm not in, what do they call it? My wits, I'm not in my full, not in my right mind. And more correctly, let me say this, I'm not in my front mind. So big part of this mechanism of enlightenment and to stay with an open heart is to keep on bringing that energy forward to the prefrontal cortex and the heart. Hence, when I said in our meditation, learn to live with the tip of your tongue to your upper palate. Lips gently closed, tip of the cup of the upper palate. The root of the tongue is the heart. The tip of the tongue is extremely sensitive and brings electricity to the roof of the mouth, and the roof of the mouth, on the roof of the mouth, lives the pituitary gland in this beautiful little pouch. And it's like it's like a white pearl, and they call it Chandra. They call it in yoga, they say Chandra Amrita. And Chandra is the moon, but they're referring to the full moon, and they're essentially referring to the full moon of the pituitary gland in all its sweetness. And there's practices, breathing practices that we'll do, and we then go and we swallow, because the pituitary gland produces amrita, which is nectar, sweetness of life, and infuses, and 1 gram of it infuses the whole body, infuses the whole blood flow, all 11 liters of blood flow, and really vibrates all the cells of the body in a wonderful way. And at that moment, we're feeling high, we're feeling relaxed, we're feeling safe, and we're giggling already. We're almost jittery because of the realization that everything is love. Everything is love. And if you know it and you feel it and you get to feel this in your body, there's a resonance that comes with it, and memory that you can hold on to that can be so much, that is so much sweeter, that is so much more powerful than feeling that you're in the back room, that you're in the amygdala and the adrenals. So anything I'm angry about, even if it's something that the whole world is fighting for, and everything that, even if it's something that the world should move towards, if I'm angry about it in the way I go about it, I am closing down myself. And what happens then is that I can't be fully functioning, and I can't shine the light on that truth in my best way and the way that I can. Right? So what happens is that instead of shining my light on what I feel is the truth, I close down and I'm dragged down along with that person that maybe triggered me, because someone else triggered them, because maybe that's where they live, because of their liver. They constantly live between the dysfunction of their liver and their adrenals and amygdala. Right? If you have a cut, like hurt, or you just hurt yourself, really, you just bruised your hand, it's really hard to be love, because now something's shutting down. You have to really heal it. You have to fix it. And then when that's eased off, then you say, okay, guys, a couple tears are still coming down. Okay, that was weird. That was awful. Now I'm all right. I feel good. And what you're feeling is coming back to the prefrontal cortex and the heart. So the way to enlightenment, and maybe not to enlightenment, maybe we don't need to reach enlightenment. Maybe we just need to step out of the purgatory. Maybe all we need to do, maybe a beautiful space to step out of, is just to step out of being in our adrenals and our amygdala. Feel that and practice that. Bring the tip of your tongue to your upper palate next time you're triggered. Fan out your toes, scoop your tailbone, lift your ribcage, tuck your chin, tip of the tongue, gentle smile. Inhale fully and open your ribcage, almost like you're about to hug this person. Don't hug them, especially if they're angry. But just feel that you're leaning in, and that's what your body language is saying. There's more in etymology, and there's more that we could talk about words and how they can de-trigger someone and how they can change the environment. But first of all, and most important, I want to say this for tonight. Feel into this and notice if, when you're getting angry, if you can change it, because there is a certain amount of satisfaction that we all get when we're angry, because we have fed our cells with cortisol and adrenaline. Our cells still want some of it. So when we do get angry and we feed our cells with adrenaline and cortisol, we get yeah, now I feel good. So there's also this place and time of detoxing from it, where we might feel the craving for it. I want to get angry. But move through it, push through it, let it go. Keep on bringing love into your life. Keep on scooping tailbone, tip of the tongue to the upper palate. And again, I find it extremely interesting every time it happens, when something's not functioning at a desk in an office that I went to, when someone shut the door on me, when someone cut off me in the road, when someone yelled at me or called me a name. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. This is like wildly interesting because I've answered to all these people a million times, but what I haven't done is stay in my heart a million times. And that's my goal, to stay in my heart, not to correct this person or to worry or to stay in it afterwards for an hour or a day. Because when I come back home, I want to stay open as love for my son who's visiting, for my wife who we're together, for my ability to be in this broad, open view of the world and not closing down and missing out on life while it's still happening and the nectar of love is surrounding me. I hope this has been useful. I hope this has been amusing and entertaining. I think that's where I want it to be. Make it amusing and entertaining and interesting for you in front of a difficult circumstance or person to open even wider and notice what's happening. Notice what's happened. Notice what can happen in the environment when you do that. And if you find a shift and a change, please shoot me an email. Let's gather some stories. Send it at evolve@jaguarpath.com. Thank you all for being here. I love the first Mondays of the month. I love sharing. And if there's anything else you're interested in hearing for next Dharma Talk, Monday in June, where's this year going? Please shoot an email with questions or ideas of titles that we could talk about. Thank you all so much. A lot of love from my prefrontal cortex and my heart. Namaste and Horpichai. Horpichai, Horpichai. It's so good to see all of you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your support and your love. Good night, all.
Horpichai.
Horpichai, Horpichai.